at how angry the cat is.
Grr.
Oh wait, she's on her back now. Never mind.
No, that's a I don't care. I hate the world stance.
Yeah. Yeah, she's like, the other night I let her out, and 2 hours later, she usually knocks on the back door or on the front door. And she wasn't knocking. She wasn't anywhere. I called her. She didn't come. There's a skunk smell in the air. And I'm like, girl, you get it. I don't know what to do for you.
Apparently bathing in tomatoes.
She is not a cat that likes to be wet.
Do you have a tomato vineyard in the backyard where you can just harvest and juice and just lather her in?
Of course. All Canadians do.
We have tomato vineyards. We do.
Yeah. I'm just far enough south that I am able to produce that many tomatoes. But no, she's not. She would not be into it. I would lose blood in large volumes if that were the case. But here's the thing. My brother-in-law came home, he's on night shift, and he came home at 6 a.m. Mm-hmm. And she was outside. It was pouring rain, and she was out on the front porch scowling. He says,
do you think she was singing in her head Come Clean by Hilary Duff? Because every time it rains, that's what I'm singing.
Every time it rains, that's what I sing too.
I think that's a common thing for our age group. It's just very it's ingrained in us.
I wonder.
The rain fall down
and make my dream. Let it wash away my sanity.
I was gonna say, speaking of Hilary Duff, I have to say I'm a little mad that RuPaul's Drag Race has never had her on as a lip sync song.
Yep. Maybe they can't get the rights.
It's Hilary Duff. What kind of rights do you need to, she's not doing much these days.
She's actually...
She's in Younger. I know she's in Younger.
Yeah. I've been watching that show. And it's made me love her more. Same with her husband's Instagram.
Oh, who's she married to again? A hockey player?
Divorced. She was married to, I believe, a Canadian hockey player, Carrie Underwood, but she's now married to a singer-songwriter artist. And they have a beautiful child, and she looks actually happy and not just sad happy.
Hilary Duff, I have to say, is one of the more balanced child stars.
Yep, she came out of that relatively unscathed, and
yeah.
I'm super and nobody. Do you know what? We really take Brittany, Lindsay, Paris, all of them. We take them to task for their pasts and their inability to cope, but we don't talk about the ones who were able to deal with it.
Hilary Duff, Anna Paquin,
right?
I'm trying to think of others.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas grew
JTT.
up, got out of the game, moved right to the gay district of San Francisco.
Is he gay? No.
The rumor is. I don't think that he's out to the world. But when he disappeared into obscurity, someone's like, "Oh, I know that guy. He lives in my neighborhood." It's a prominent gay neighborhood in
the Castro?
In San Francisco. I can't remember.
JTT. We'll invite him on. There's an open invitation to Jonathan Taylor Thomas where he can also rank all of our wood collection around my house.
Yeah. I was thinking about that actually when I was collecting driftwood on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was Brent would love this one.
It's actually Jason that spearheads it, but I enable it. So, Jason loves it. He collects it all around the county. For us, it's great.
God, his white woman Instagram must be ripe.
Poppin'.
Right, rock tumbling, driftwood collecting, golden retriever.
Yeah, I know. Well, yellow lab.
Yellow lab. Just checking all of the boxes.
It's the county lifestyle. It's very cute and quaint and artisanal and basic, and we fit right in.
Country chic.
Country chic. Yeah, it is country chic.
Yeah, you're you know what? I'm gonna strip all the color out of my hair and really rattle those bones.
Yeah, it was a cry for attention. We're
I
turning
like it.
30 in a couple months. I actually really like it too. I'm gonna keep it for the summer.
Yeah, I love it. You're turning 30?
I'm turning 30 in September. Yeah.
Jeez.
Finally. I feel like I've been 30 since you've met me.
I thought so too.
I know.
But I was like, no, there's no way. Like he's one of those like young 30s. Like he has to be. There's no way he can be this smart and worldly and cultured. And then it turned out that you are gay. And then I was like, oh, that makes sense then.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I'm 20, I'm 24, 24, 25.
I've seen the world. I'm 24. I don't know.
But you weren't like that though. You weren't like, I've seen the world. You were just like you and smart and you did stuff and you're a scientist, et cetera, et cetera. Like everybody else around you was a scientist too, but they weren't.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I mean, the older I get, we're filming.
Oh, hello.
I was talking about me, which is part of the podcast.
Oh. Well, he's technically part of you. Well, not physically, but hey. We're not cutting that out.
Okay, that's fine. Anyways.
Okay. Does he have skulls on his shirt?
Pineapples?
Oh.
Pineapples. Pineapple print.
So basic. I love it.
Welcome to the Full Volume Podcast. I took your line.
Steal a gig. Continue.
I am your co-host, Harvey Brent, joined by the effervescent
G.I. Jolie.
And we're here today to bring you episode 2 of Marvel's Loki.
Yes. Oh my God. Well, I mean, Disney Plus and Marvel brought the fire first, but yes, we're going to talk about that fire second.
We're bringing the embers.
We're just fanning them flames. It was so good. Good. Let's do our usual, like, 3 things we love about, but we'll do a recap first, which is what we had started doing last episode when we talked about episode 1, but we got so excited.
Yeah, last week was a bit of a mess.
Excite fest.
In the best way.
Okay. So let us recap Loki. Okay, so we are now, Loki is now at the TVA. He is going to be helping Agent Mobius, with the grand search for the Loki variants, because apparently Loki variants are bad for the timeline. The sacred timeline, we should say. Okay, so.
Sacred to whom?
Gets to that later, maybe, if we remember. There's just a lot to unpack. There's so much stuff in this episode, and oh God, I loved Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but I love Loki. My goodness.
Oh, it's so much better. Like it's not a chore to watch.
It's a treat, and it's rewatchable.
Totally.
Okay, so long story short-ish, Loki figures out, based on the kablooey bubblegum evidence that Mobius has collected, that the variant is hiding in apocalypse events on the timeline because variant energy can't or isn't being traced in those apocalypse events. So he is looking through the folders of all these events, and he notices that there's no variant energy. It says 0 variance energy. He's like, that would be smart of me to hide in those places. Also, the bubblegum comes from the year 2050? 20,
yeah, 2050.
The year 2050.
In Alabama. Ooh.
Yeah. So they figure out that there is an apocalypse event caused by humans, because we're assholes, that the variant Loki has been hiding in to hide from them. There's a lot of stuff in between that I'm cutting to the chase for, so we'll get to it. Don't worry. But yeah, they Mobius, Loki, and the team, the current existing team that hasn't been destroyed, heads to the year 2050. They test the theory in Pompeii, and then they figure out, okay, the theory is correct. So they head to 2050. Lo and behold, all kinds of weird shit's happening. The Earth is pretty much ending. Ugh. It's sad and dismal. And the only thing left is like a Costco style Best Buy.
Woohoo! Capitalism.
Yeah, or like a Walmart. The uniforms are blue, which is scary. And you know what? At the end of our Earth, Walmart will be like cockroaches. It's not unsponsored.
Mm-hmm.
Unsponsored.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where Loki finds our variant. Variant is introduced as a woman.
Yeah.
Potentially in the credits, the French credits, she's credited.
I thought it was Spanish.
Spanish,
yeah.
Exactly. She's credited as Sylvie, who is actually Enchantress, but all signs point to she's the female version of Loki, leading the way, paving the path into the fan theories / theories since before WandaVision that they're going to be chasing all kinds of variants from within the comic books. Cool. Let's discuss.
Well, and that's like the last shot too, where female Loki / likely Enchantress sets off all of these TVA. What was it like? It wasn't bombs. It was like.
Yeah, they're like converted time. The TVA had been using them to erase the next, like the timeline branches.
Yeah.
But there's something in them.
She created like a circuit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then what that did is it pans back to the TVA and we get all these like branch timelines. Drama. Drama.
Drama llamas for your mama. Also suggesting that Loki is definitely going to be ground zero for Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
Which we already like kind of knew. Like that was kind of like hinted at, but now we're getting that. And I love it. This is like the end of this episode. I know we're jumping ahead, but the end of this episode is really what is going to start leading us into WandaVision like speculation. Because now we have all these possibilities. We're like, oh, they could bring so-and-so from this timeline and so-and-so from that timeline. And this is now the we're almost like at the point now in the comic books where the comics they're always jumping between timelines and bringing characters back from different timelines to suit their narrative needs. The MCU has made it there. We're here. We can do whatever and make messy decisions and correct for them later. Messy.
Yeah, sorry, she's choking. But I'm okay now. Okay. So yeah, the idea, you brought up the whole thing about messy timelines. The idea is that if they don't like it, they being who controls the TVA? The Time Lords? No, that's Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Timekeepers?
Yeah,
Kang?
Yeah, and we haven't met them yet, and that is one of Loki's ultimate goals. And I suspect that by the end of this season, we will meet them. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they're the big bad. I mean, everything online points to Kang the Conqueror being the big bad still going forward as the next Thanos. So I don't know the severity of these people, but we'll see. I'm not too familiar with like Thor and Loki comics. Again, my realm is more X-Men, but I almost kind of like that sometimes because like I am a comic book fan, but there's a lot that I still don't know or don't remember. At least maybe they'll introduce the Timekeepers. I'm like, oh, I do know that person. Who knows? I played a lot. Well, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry.
No, I was gonna say I played a lot of the Marvel games and stuff, so I do have like adjacent knowledge, but I don't usually have canonical knowledge about some of that stuff. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I am like you, where I'm more a nerd for other things, but where I am a nerd for other things that aren't Marvel. Sorry, I'm a DC. I am a geek for research. So I love the thing about these shows as they get introduced and as we get to watch them, is that I get to do gads of research in the middle of the night sometimes until 3 a.m., falling down a Wikipedia hole or like a Marvel encyclopedia hole, learning about all of this stuff. So, from what I gather about the timekeepers and how important the sacred timeline is if Kang is one of the timekeepers, they keep going back.
Are they?
They keep going back to his statue. Is he one of the lizard statues?
I don't know. I didn't realize Kang the Conqueror was. I thought maybe he was going to be something entirely different from the Timekeepers.
Oh, maybe he is. Sorry.
I don't know. I was just saying, like, I remember reading online that Kang the Conqueror was the next big bad. So that's why I'm like, oh, what's going on with the Timekeepers? But maybe Kang is one of them. I don't know.
Okay. So, well, here's the thing. Okay, this segues into to what I think would be really cool, and it sounds like is happening, is that the whole idea of a sacred timeline is part of the big bad. Like, who needs a sacred timeline anyway? What will they do to create or maintain a sacred timeline? That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Will they kill? Obviously they will. It's been shown they'll destroy actual reality to turn back time. Share.
I was just going to say
that. Let's see. Oh, here's another thing too, is that Scarlet Witch is a Nexus being.
Mm-hmm.
So now we've been introduced to what a Nexus is, which is a branch of a timeline.
Yeah.
And again, I just want to make room for Ralph Boner theories.
Oh God. Oh, I'm okay with that. You're bringing Evan Peters into the mix. Please, let's talk about this Nexus event that would lead to a turn for Evan Peters.
Right? A comeback. Yeah, anyway, sorry. That was my tangent. Okay. So I'm interested in seeing how far the timekeepers in this show are willing to go to keep the timeline sacred. Mm-hmm. I'm hedging my bets that they're gonna go real far. I don't know if that'll be. Well, here's the thing. They have to have a multiverse for there to be a multiverse of madness in Doctor Strange. So I don't think the events of Loki wrap up in a neat bow.
I agree. I was just thinking that too, actually. I'm like, there's no way you're going to have a multiverse if all of a sudden the timekeepers prevail and bring it back down to one uniform timeline. And also, speaking of the timekeepers, they talked about it a little bit this week, but like, I think Loki asked Mobius, like, how do the timekeepers know, like, what are they doing? Like, how do they create the sacred timeline? And either Mobius or it was Ravonna was like, they just, they unstrand different realities and they decide which one is the right one, and it's like, what? Like, how do you decide that? That's like picking between like different stalks of corn. And, it's like, this is the one, these other ones are garbage. Like, how do you, well, I guess you look at the stalk of corn, but something a little less subjective. Like, so that's the logic in that is kind of like, that's so, what do you decide is the right version of the timeline? Is that part of your power? So I'm super curious to see how that actually unfolds.
Yes. And the way that they've written it, or they've rewritten time travel, I should say, is that because they have to explain away now the version of time travel that happened in the Avengers, in the Avengers films. Because it kind of conflicts when you think about it with their version of time travel as they're presenting it in Loki. So I guess what they're saying now is that the time traveling that happened in Avengers is part of the sacred timeline. Like Steve Trevor.
Who dat?
Who's she? Steve Captain America was always supposed to go back in time. He was always supposed to go be or sorry, he was always supposed to be found in the ice and then go back in time in the future and then die old, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it's hard.
So sorry, Jolie. I was just
It's
handed a
okay.
note. I was just handed a note from one of our producers here. I'll
Oh
put it up
no.
on the screen for you, and you can read it out loud to the audience. I don't know if you can.
TV the TVA is the quantum realm. Ant-Man. Hint. Time moves different. Oh wow.
I was handed a note from one of our producers there, so I don't know if that fits into.
Do you know what? It would make sense though.
It does.
That the TVA is the quantum realm.
Maybe.
I'm gonna have to look into that.
Let's sit on that. Let's.
Happy Pride.
That was
What?
Said who?
Mm, mm.
Sorry, I totally cut you off there. I was.
No,
I'm sorry.
it's a thought that wasn't finishing, and it kind of goes into what our producer, thank you, producer, was kind of saying, is that and what you were saying, like, what is the sacred timeline? How do these timekeepers have their power? If Thanos is part of the sacred timeline and his destruction and the reversal of his destruction was all part of the sacred timeline, then who are they?
Who authorized this? Who's in charge here?
Yeah, we're gonna get a little Chad and a little Karen.
Can I get a little manager override, please, on timeline 616? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Oh, speaking of, okay, maybe we'll segue into our favorite parts of this episode since we have recapped and now we're just theorizing. Okay, so what you brought up 616. And we're not talking about Experiment, though he is one of my favorite blue experiments. I mean, Disney, same universe now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's adjacent. We're allowed to mention it. Okay. One of my favorite things about this show are the Easter eggs. There are a lot, and I thought I would hate it. I was like, ugh, great. It's going to be a slog to get through this without like nerd level participation, where we're just like, all my thoughts surround everything that has to do with Loki because there's too much to get through. But things like using the numbers to be the different floors of the TVA is really cool. It's one of my favorite things. So I found out like floor 372 is what the first appearance of Thor in the comics.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's a floor. It's very visible. In the background while Loki is doing or requesting research at the library, at the TVA library.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really cute and neat, and now makes me want to look and see what all the other numbers and what all the other like initialisms are for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of my favorites. One of my favorite things that happened this week. Okay, now you go.
Oh my God. Okay. I have to say my first favorite thing about this episode was kind of, I guess, the role that they've brought Loki into, as like he almost has like a Sherlock Holmes-esque role to him. You first see it when they the beginning of the episode takes place at an 80s Renaissance fair, and I think it's in Wisconsin, maybe Minnesota. I think it's Wisconsin. And that's when the time variant of Loki kills a bunch of hunters that are looking for the time variant. And then they bring Loki and Mobius back to the scene of that crime. And Loki's going through all of these like deductions, of like what happened here. And I love this like new role for him because he's still like, Loki and he's out for himself, but he has to be helpful to get there. I always love these crossed motives, where like has to work with someone else to get to what he wants. And I just love that. And then you see it later on too, where he and Mobius do an experiment in Pompeii, because that's when Loki realized, hey, the time variant's hiding out in catastrophes. Let's go to Pompeii and check for variant energy. And Loki makes this huge, he's doing diagnostics there, which I thought was fun, where he's making a big scene. He's like, "You're all going to die," and that's, it was great just seeing him kind of unwrap a mystery. That's kind of what I was like. I think Loki is at his most interesting right now when he is not so much like he's still scheming in the background. Like he clearly has his own motives, but when he is working towards them, and it's like, maybe it's because the narrative's actually following him instead of, usually when we see Loki, the narrative is following Thor or it's following the Avengers. But this time we're just seeing it follow Loki. And that means that we're seeing how his brain works, as opposed to how Thor's brain works or the Avengers. Like the focus is on Loki. So I love that. I love the cogs turning in his brain.
Yeah, that's on my list too. Literally Loki doing research.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's so fun. And it's a type of character building that we didn't get to see enough of when Disney Marvel gave Falcon and the Winter Soldier their own property. Ugh. I was really afraid for Loki because of that. It's like, okay, so it's like, okay, so apparently being the namesake of a television property on a streaming service is not an indicator of whether we're going to get what we want or not, which is, to be honest, character development. This is us getting the opportunity to see what Loki is capable of. We know that he's a schemer, so he uses his schemy brain to figure out mysteries, and he knows. We always knew that he knew that about himself, that he's that no matter what, he kind of always got the short end of the stick. But we get to see him. Yeah, we get to see him use that to his advantage in this episode. And we get to see how he interacts with himself, or we get to see how maybe feeling a little inferior, how that affects him as a god. I was about to say person, but as a god with, human feelings.
Yeah.
The idea that there's a Loki out there who's doing it better than him is, it's a chip in his ego, and we get to see it. We get to see it play out, and we get, as a result of seeing it playing out, we get to see all this fun detective stuff, and I love it.
Oh, for sure.
So, number 2 on my list was just that. I guess it's just a branch off of the whole Loki doing research, is the just a plot point, which is the nexus or the research, the bubblegum. I just think it's hilarious that they found, or they were able to go, oh, that bubblegum only exists in this timeline in this year, so it must be where it is, where the variant is. So that's one of my favorite things. And apparently there's like an Easter egg with the kablooey, which I mentioned last.
You did, yeah.
Last week. That's cool and fine. Speaking of products, is it Josta Cola that they are drinking in the cafeteria is actually a discontinued cola from the 90s.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that used to be advertised in the comics. So that's hilarious. Anyway,
that's great. Yeah.
That cola is going to make a comeback, or be only sold at Disney parks. Who knows?
Or can you imagine if somebody's sitting on a bottle of it right now and puts it on eBay? We should look later. Part of our research.
Yes, part of our research. 2 a.m. Here I come.
My number 2 is really quick. I just loved how Mobius was, or it might have been Mobius, but the TVA was recapping the different types of time variant Lokis that they have pruned from the timeline. There was like a He-Man Loki and an Olympian Loki. I thought that was great. That's my number 2. I just love the different variations of Loki. Which
right?
are I'm assuming too. There's one in there that clearly must be a callback to the comics. Like Loki's a shapeshifter, so I'm assuming he must have occupied one of those roles at some point in the comics.
Hmm. Loki. Okay, mine is Loki. My third point is Loki does magic. So they've gotten back because he's always been this side character or like tertiary character, and even though he was the main baddie in one of the films, he was still a secondary guy, brother to Thor.
Hmm.
Not all that important. But here, oh my goodness, my brain went completely blank just now.
Loki doing magic.
That's it. Okay. So we know that he is able to uh, jump. His soul is able to jump bodies, and that's how we get a lady Loki.
Hmm.
Are we getting more notes from our producer?
Nope, we're good.
Okay.
No more notes.
And then, but inside the Best Buy, Walmart, Costco,
Yes,
he does telekinesis.
he does briefly.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what that is. Whether he thought that he could do it and then did it, or if he knew he could already do it and then did it.
Yeah, they weren't clear on that, and it was interesting that the variant of Loki was able to cycle through bodies so quickly. So there's some explanation, some eventual exposition that needs to be done there because I would have just assumed that all variants of Loki had the same powers. But maybe
Mm-hmm.
again, that kind of leans into the theory that maybe this female version of Loki isn't Loki at all. Maybe it's Enchantress. But still, that doesn't explain away why Loki can all of a sudden do telekinesis. Like, you're not Jean Grey. Sit down. Sit down.
Mm-hmm. Don't bring in the X-Men if you're not going to bring in the X-Men.
Yeah, exactly.
Do not try it with us.
Or if you're going to do it right. Number 3 for me would be not so much a plot point, but an aesthetic choice. Is I like once they go to the year 2050, there is a distinct like horror adjacent vibe as they're like combing through the supermarket or department store looking for this variant. I love that. The flickering lights, like a sense of dread. Like it was really well done, and it's something we don't see very often or almost ever in the MCU. We got a brief glimpse of it in WandaVision when we went into Agnes's basement. But they gave me some like I was feeling a little bit of the Purge in there. I was feeling like,
Resident Evil 2.
yeah, Resident Evil 2, which I still haven't seen because I haven't seen any of the Resident Evil films. But what? What were you
Oh,
saying?
I was going to say, I was thinking more of the video games, but
I also have not played the video games, which
oh,
I know is like crazy right now because everybody's talking about Resident Evil Village. And like, have you seen that online? Resident Evil Village? It's number 8.
no.
Oh man, you got to look it up. It looks crazy, but in a good way. But no, it was giving me the Purge vibes. It was giving me a little bit of Stephen King's The Mist a little bit because it took place in a supermarket. Oh, I love The Mist. So yeah, I really appreciated the change in tone, and I think it worked really well. And that's what we need from these properties is we need it to diversify. And we've already like I don't know how much you've kept up with Doctor Strange sequel, but they're saying too that the Doctor Strange sequel is going to lean into some horror elements, and I think we're already maybe seeing that slightly with Loki a little bit, which I love. I love horror, so.
Mm-hmm. And I continue to let horror sit with me, but I don't love it.
Oh, I know.
Obviously, no one likes to be scared. Do you know what some people do, which is like just unheard of for me? But yeah. Now that you mention it, that vibe so good.
Mhm.
Oh God, the people working on these shows are insanely talented. I don't know where they're going with this one, and but I'm along for the ride. I'm into
Yeah.
it.
Well, you're
Yeah.
going to have to be because at the end of the episode, Loki follows the time variant into a portal. So you are along for the ride.
Oh, I
Buckle
can't
in.
wait for when. Can't wait for Wednesday. Yeah. And, Mobius, despite him warning him not to, he does it anyway.
Despite
so maybe
himself, yes.
Yeah. So this is going to be very interesting. I don't know how they're going to track him. I don't know what Loki is going to do to other, maybe Lady Loki, maybe Enchantress. We don't know. But yeah, excuse me. Sorry, I had like breakfast and coffee at the same time. So we're a little elevated when it comes to noises in the morning. Anyway, yeah, I'm excited to see what happens because, again, like WandaVision, I only know sort of the briefest things about these characters, and the shows are giving me more insight and thirst for research. A thirst that I did not get with our last show. But yeah, do you have any final thoughts?
I mean, no, I think I covered it both at the beginning and now, but I'm interested. Again, this is the point now because we've set off all these different Nexus events, these different timelines. This is the point where we're, going forward. I'm sure after we watch the next episode, we're really going to have a lot of questions and theories about what's going to happen because now we've opened that door. We've opened Pandora's box to all these different possibilities. So I'm excited for what we're going to talk about next week because I'm sure we're going to start seeing the rules of the game that Marvel's laid out and how that can apply to different properties and upcoming, movies and different Marvel shows. So it's going to be cool.
Okay, great. So if you have any theories or disagreements, because we know that you do, with anything that we've said, send us an email. You can always do that at fullvolumepod@gmail.com. You can also reach out to us via social media because we all know that only dinosaurs use email. That's we're part of the Comic Book Syndicate Network, just in case that's confusing, but it's at Comic Book Syndicate on Facebook and YouTube and that's Instagram and YouTube, at Comic Syndicate on Twitter, #FullVolumePod. We would love to hear what you have to say. You can listen to episodes from the past, but not the present. Wait.
Not the future. Not from a Nexus event.
No, not the future. We don't do that kind of traveling. Well, I mean, we don't do any traveling, but that's besides the point. On our website, that's www.comicbooksyndicate.com/fullvolumepod, or maybe just podcasts. You can find this podcast and all of our other podcasts right there on our online home. We also have the video version of this on our YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/comicbooksyndicate. If you're listening, we are hosted on Launchpad, but you can listen on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Apple Podcasts.
Yep, the Apple one, Steve Jobs.
Yeah, that's the one. The one, yeah. Excuse me. Okay, so Spotify, Apple. Oh, we're on Amazon Music too. We're also on iHeartRadio by searching Full Volume Podcast or the Comic Book Syndicate Network. But if you look for Full Volume Podcast, there is another one that hasn't been around for a while.
Do we have imitators?
That's not us.
Do we have imitators? It's a serious form of flattery.
We don't. But they it seemed like you know how they say 20% of all podcasts don't go past, or 88% of all podcasts don't go past episode 20. She was one of them. The other one. We've
made it. This is episode 22.
Mm-hmm. The Nexus event, Full Volume Podcast. Yeah, they're just a branch of the timeline. Anyway.
Ooh. Burn.
Until next time. Keep it loud.
Keep it at full volume, but only in the sacred timeline.
Bye.
Bye.